So Donnie does Barstool Sports foreign correspondent. Did I get that title right?
Yeah.
Is that your official title?
That's what I call myself.
Oh, but it's not like a business card. You don't have
Um,
the foreign correspondent.
no, I don't even have a business card. I should get one of those.
You should get a foreign
Um,
correspondent business card title.
yeah. No, I feel like at Barstool you can kind of just create your own job title. I
The-
like that. It makes it like, especially when people ask like what I do for work, and I don't want to go into detail like, oh, I'm a blogger. If you tell certain people, if they're like above a certain age, they're just going to be confused. So I can tell them, yeah, I'm a journalist. I'm a foreign correspondent, and it definitely like sounds a lot better.
It's true too, in the grand scheme of things, and you're probably the only foreign correspondent without an English accent and one with a Massachusetts accent.
Yeah, and like when people ask my parents, "What does your son do for work?" They're not like, "Oh, he shares stories about accidentally trying crystal meth." They can just be like, "Oh, he's a foreign correspondent."
Is that what they say?
Um, yeah, I mean they're from Massachusetts, so they probably say, "Oh, he works for Barstool Sports,"
Oh,
because
yeah.
like up there, people may have heard of it at least.
So how did you get up from Massachusetts to China?
So was born and raised in Massachusetts. Went to college in Mass, and one of my friends from college, he had gone abroad to Shanghai, and he had loved it so much that he was a junior at the time, and this was like his second semester, I think. He just chose to stay in Shanghai and not even go back for his last year of college, and he was the year below me. So this was around the time that I was graduating. And I didn't have anything planned. I didn't want to jump right into like a 9 to 5 because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. But I did know I wanted to travel some. And he was just like, you got to come out to China. It's awesome. There's loads of opportunities. So I figured I would take a teaching job out there at first just to wet my feet, and see what it's like. He was saying, oh, you can just like show up and find a job. But I had never been to Asia in my life, and I was like, I think I need a job in place before I go out there. So I wanted to come to Shanghai, but they told me I couldn't. They told me to get a teaching job in Shanghai, you need to either be older than 25 or have 2 years experience. That's not true at all. So I just kind of got screwed over by this teaching agency. But they were like, we can get you a job in Guangzhou, which is the third largest city in China. It used to be called Canton. That was like the ancient name for it, like Cantonese food. And it's down near Hong Kong. And I told them, I'll take the job if you let me like room with some other foreigners, some other foreign teachers, because I don't speak a word of Chinese. And if I'm like living somewhere downtown, where there's like loads of people around, loads of activities. So they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. I show up. That was not the case. I was put in an apartment by myself in like East Bumfuck Guangzhou that wasn't even on the subway lines. I had to take like a 50-minute bus just to get downtown, and that bus would stop running at 10 p.m. at night. So if I wanted to go out at night, I would just have to stay out all night until 6 or 7 a.m. when the buses reopened. So I finally met one other teacher who was like also was living in East Bumfuck, and on the weekends we would just kind of go into Guangzhou and just like stay for the whole weekend. And I obviously was not too happy with this. I think I called my parents at one point and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna leave. Like I'm probably gonna head home in a few weeks because this sucks. But on Halloween we were at one of the expat bars there, me and my buddy, and we were playing a game.
What were you dressed up as?
I don't even think I had a costume. Everybody else at the bar did. I know the manager was dressed like a panda. And we're trying to play a game where we point at one of the expats and we guess where they're from. And I saw this one dude who was like fat and balding, and I was like, I bet he's from the U.S. So I go up and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Are you American? And he was like, nah, mate, I'm from Liverpool. People from Liverpool are very proud of the fact they're from Liverpool. And I was like, oh, so you're British? And he was like, I'm not British. I'm a Scouser. Scouse is what they call themselves. And he was like, but hey, how you doing, mate? My friend's doing a DJ show at this club later on tonight around like 3 a.m. You should come through. By the way, do you like drugs? he just asked me that right off the bat, and I was like, I don't know, like, I guess. And then just hands me a bag of like white powder and leaves the place. It was pretty shady, but I had 0 friends like at the time, so I was like, all right, let's go and meet this guy and, you know, see what his deal is. So we meet him at the club later. I was like, by the way, what was that like bag of powder you handed me earlier? And he was like, oh, it's the stuff called MCAT, which is like made in like a factory in China. He was like, it's kind of like legal here because it's a lot like MDMA, but they changed a few bonds so it's not MDMA, so we can like sell it legally. And I was like, okay. And I guess like he was selling that shit in Guangzhou, and at the same time he was the headmaster of like a pretty prominent school there. And like as I came to learn, people loved him at the school. Like if you walked into it, there was a giant poster of him. I read their school paper, and it was all these like 5-year-olds being like, he is my favorite teacher. He became a very close friend because he kind of took me and my buddy under his wing and was like, you know, you don't always have to take the bus like all the way back. You don't have to just like stay out all night. If you just need to like crash at my apartment, it's fine. And then he introduced me to all of his friends who were also from the UK. So for like my 10 months in Guangzhou, I was like the token American hanging out with all Brits. And, you know, thanks to him, thanks to this headmaster / drug dealer, I lasted in China longer than 3 weeks. But after 10 months, like this guy was maybe 34 at the time and obviously doing kind of loads of drugs. Him and his crew, they wouldn't like sleep on the weekends a lot. They would go out on Fridays and they would go to bed Sunday night. I think he did this for like 9 months straight, just like not sleeping on the weekends.
And then teach the kids on Monday?
Yeah. And then during the week, he'd be super quiet. He'd be in bed by 9 p.m. But yeah, every weekend, no sleep. And so that lifestyle, it was getting a little crazy. And I had originally moved to China so I could live in Shanghai, where my friend from college was. So after 10 months, moved up to Shanghai. And I was kind of doing some private tutoring there, but my friend from college was also doing this events company where they would organize party buses. They did like an expat beach volleyball league because there was like a fake beach along the river in Shanghai where they would play. They would do boat parties, some networking events. So I started working for that part-time.
So were you always documenting your journey up that way? Or like when did you start doing your videos?
No, like, I mean, living in Guangzhou, I was just like, that's when I noticed. I was like, oh, this place would be great to make some vids and stuff. At that point, though, like, I didn't have a camera. I didn't know how to video edit. But when I moved up to Shanghai, my friend from college did. Like, he had been video editing in college. He had a camera, knew how to edit, and he was down to start making content too. I was just looking around in China. I was like, it's such an absurd place. You can do a lot of things here that you wouldn't be able to do back in the US. And like also China is very different than how it's painted in the media back in the US. So I was like, this would be a great place to make vids. And I kind of like adopted the role of just being this guy in videos who'd be like the last person you would expect to see out in China. I was like, I want to make videos where I'm not even like acknowledging the fact that I'm in China. I'm acting exactly, you know, how I'd act back in Boston, but my surroundings are that I'm in China. Almost like a sitcom of sorts, but like I'm the only one who's in on the joke. And then I can just use other random Chinese people as like the supporting cast of characters.
Had you ever done videos before you went?
I've always liked making videos. Even when me and my friends were like 12 years old, we would just take my dad's camcorder and like make vids. So I always enjoyed doing it. In college, me and my buddy who then moved to China, we would do some like rant vids where I would just be on a stoop somewhere in Boston and just go on just like a funny rant, just complaining about all this like random shit. So we had a little experience working together. And then the first vid that we ever made together actually did well. It went like semi-viral. It was shared on Barstool. And that was, I was teaching kindergarten at the time, and I realized I was the only person at the kindergarten who can speak English. So I was like, I don't even think they'd care if you just come in and like film me. I'll just be like, my friend's coming in with a camera, and they wouldn't really care. So we did that, and then it was just me teaching the kids like Boston terms and chants, like Yankees suck, We love Kevin Garnett. I hate Derek Jeter.
Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter. Sucks. Sucks. Derek Jeter sucks. Derek Jeter sucks.
And that video did well, and so then I think that the next video I did was my first Shanghai Sharks video. They're the professional basketball team in China.
How you doing? 3 beers and a Fanta.
The whole Shanghai Sharks thing, it kind of started off as a joke. I was like, I'm just going to go and pretend like I'm the most diehard fan ever. I eventually did become like a legit Shanghai Sharks fan. But then that vid did well too. That got picked up by Barstool at the time. And so that got a lot of views right off the bat. And so, like, we were enjoying it. We were having fun doing it. So, yeah, we just kept on cranking out these vids. I mean, not all of them got a lot of views. Like, for a while, you know, I would be lucky just to get, like, 1,000 views in a week. I still really enjoyed doing it. So I was more just doing it as, like, a hobby. But they weren't getting the crazy amount of views. Like, I hope to, you know, if I could turn this into, like, a job somehow, that'd be sweet. But, like, I wasn't really getting the views to make me think that I could.
Did that thought come before you did your first video, or at some point when you're making it, like, this is really fun, I wish I could make this a job?
I mean, I always kind of had the idea of making this kind of, like, absurdist travel show. And, I mean, I've always loved traveling when I've had the opportunity. And I've always just enjoyed making people laugh. So, like, when I just started making the videos in China, I was like, well, you know, this could turn into me not only making videos in China, but making funny videos all over the place, where it's like, yeah, the first priority is just to make a funny video. But, you know, if it can also show people a part of the world or some aspect of a culture that, like, they wouldn't have learned about, then, you know, that's a win-win.
Not only are you, like, the foreign correspondent, you're also, like, an ambassador. I mean, you've touched Yankee Suck Chants.
Yes, so I was an ambassador. For a lot of people in China, you interact with them. They're like, "Oh, this is really cool. Like, I've never talked to an American before." Back in the 1920s and 30s, there were loads of foreigners in Shanghai. It was one of the most, like, international cities in the world. When World War II, Japan invaded Shanghai, so, like, all the foreigners left, and then the communists came to power, and they were just like, no foreigners. Like, we don't, they didn't, like, allow foreigners in the country for, like, a long time.
You said earlier that, like, there's a lot of misconceptions that Americans have about China. Like, what is the one that stands out to you the most?
I guess the biggest misconception is that it's still, like, a communist country. I mean, you can't vote or anything, but Shanghai is probably the most capitalistic place I've been to in my life. Just the biggest, craziest shopping malls you've ever seen. All of these new businesses that are starting up every day, and people are getting extremely wealthy. Like, China's created the most millionaires in the world, like, over the past 30 years.
Yeah.
So in some ways, it is like a free market economy. Like, if you have a good idea for some sort of business, you can become hugely successful. Like, Jack Ma, the richest guy in China, he was just, like, a poor dude from the countryside who just, like, had a good idea. He pretty much created the Amazon of China, and now he's just, like, loaded.
Yep.
Obviously, along the way, he probably did need to, like, pay off the government at some point.
Yeah, he's a Communist Party member now, right?
Yeah.
So you had said that you're out there. That's a badass story. You had said that you've had some crazy jobs or done some other crazy things out there as well, or some crazy things have happened to you. Like, you were got hired as a professional musician.
You guys are looking at a professional rapper right now. This was my first year. I'm sure you guys, I've rapped a couple times on video.
While I'm feeling like Chaps' kid screaming hi haters, feeling like Dave did delivering papers. You could say I'm building a foundation for greatness, so who could hate this? Save for maybe Clay Travis, cause I'm salt of the earth and y'all bath salts. I work with some world-class assholes. What up, El Prez? What up, Asa? Even got an intern that used to work at NASA. So, ain't no wonder we bout to blast off. Oh, I'm low-key thick, but rap my ass off. Feeling young and happy like Keegan after a Pats loss. And the haters soft like vegans getting the cast off.
Maybe you've seen the music videos. I'm sure you didn't think I was making a living doing it. And I guess I'm not. But at one point, I did get paid to rap in China. It was my first Christmas there. We were out at this party, and I had drunkenly freestyled for this kid. He was like a white rapper in China that would just go around and perform at all these clubs around the country. And Chinese people, I guess, just think it's cool to see like a white guy on stage rapping. The next morning, I completely had forgotten that I was even rapping for this kid. But he hits me up and he's like, I got booked for 2 shows on New Year's. Like, I can't do both of them at the same time. Do you want to do one of the shows for me? I'll pay you 1,000 RMB, which is 150 US, and I'll send you up with like a professional DJ to, be your co-act. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. I show up at the train station to head to this city that was like, it's like 4 hours away. And I meet up with the DJ who was from Spain. And I'm like, so have you ever done any shows before? And he was like, nope. And I was like, okay, well, me neither. And at this point, I didn't have like songs recorded. I would just kind of like freestyle for fun with friends. So we head up to this club. And before, I had to like submit a photo to the club. I picked this photo where I am rocking like a handlebar mustache, smoking a cig. And that photo is like blown up and stylized on this huge poster. My middle name is Stewart, and so it says MC Stu. And it's just this giant billboard in front. And we walk in the club, they're like, oh, the performers are here. Can we get you anything? I was like, yeah, I'll take like a drink. They bring over a giant fruit platter and a bottle of Hennessy. And there's like all these chicks there too. And they're like, oh, these are the girls who work here. So I'm just like surrounded by chicks. I think we have a photo of this, like a bottle of Hennessy and a fruit platter. And I was like, I could get used to being a full-time rapper. But then like the show starts. I'm like, what? Like, I kind of talked to the DJ. I'm like, yeah, just like play some beats. I'll try to rap over them. So first hour, I'm just kind of like doing random raps. And like I'm rapping in English, and the club is filled with Chinese people who don't understand English. So I figure like it doesn't really matter what I'm saying, like as long as I look cool doing it. And then like at a few times I tried to actually rap in Chinese, just like singing this really stupid shit like shimma don shi buju 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 dao. And I think that just means what thing. I don't know. Also dropped the classic Ni Chi Fan Lama Chilla. And that just means have you eaten yet? I've eaten. And then one other chant I was rapping was boo boo yow, let me hear you say mayo, mayo. And that literally just means don't want. Let me hear you say don't have. So I'm sure they didn't really know what to make of that. I'm not even sure they enjoyed that. But I feel like I was able to get the crowd into it. At one point, I just started chugging beers on stage, and they seemed to enjoy like watching that as well. My last memory of the night is just doing the countdown, just to like the 10, 9, 8, and then I more or less blacked out, woke up in my hotel. They put me up in like a nice, 4-star hotel or whatever, if that's even a thing. And I talked to the DJ. I was like, how'd it go? He was like, good enough. We're still getting paid, I think. And a couple weeks later, I finally got my 1,000 RMB.
DJ Stu was the name?
It was MC Stu.
Oh, MC Stu. Were you making up those Chinese phrases or what?
Those Chinese verses were just like random little things I just thought of like for fun with friends. And like I never thought I would actually be like performing them to Chinese people. I've rapped a couple times in China. Like one time, my first day in Shanghai, I was at a music festival, and Ludacris was there and Grandmaster Flash, who's one of like the original rappers. And like before Grandmaster Flash went on, they were like, "Oh, we don't have an opening act. They didn't show up. Does anybody like want to get on stage and perform?" And my friend was like, let's do it. So he just like hopped on stage and was just like rapping on stage for a while to open up for one of the legends of hip hop.
You literally opened up for Grandmaster Flash.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, not bad.
What did you do? Did you just go up there and what'd you do? What'd you sing?
A few of the verses were just stuff that I had already preconceived, and then the other stuff was more just freestyling.
background music? You just did it a cappella?
No, they had like a DJ who was just
okay.
like playing like old school hip hop beats.
I woke up in the fresh, no hangover. Thinking to myself, the best days over. Cause it's coming on, I gotta stay focused. No, come back and know this is so cool. And my trip just started. All people like no fucking, I'm starving. So cut me off a slice and throw on all the toppings. And that's a quarter pound apples and olives.
Very cool, man.
Very cool, yeah. I'm trying to think if I got any other hip hop stories in China. I got to hang out with Jay Electronica once.
Okay.
He would just randomly performed, and like after the show was just like wandering Shanghai. So I was like, I can show you a few spots. Because they're in China, they don't know what's going on. They see another guy from the U.S. They're like, oh, okay, like we can hang out. I'm sure you know your way around here a lot better than I do.
So you have other celebrities that you've met out there?
Yeah, just random ones like John Sally, who's a 4-time NBA champion. I got weed for John Sally. So he's vegan. He was the like brand ambassador for this vegan wine company. So he was out there for this wine convention, and he doesn't drink at all. And so my friend met him at the wine convention. He was like, you should come to this club with us later. So I call up one of the clubs in China where I knew a girl who worked there, and I was like, hey, we have an NBA legend who's coming in. Will we be able to get, like a free table and some bottles? And she was like, yeah, sure. So John Sally shows up, but he's like, yo, man, I don't like drink. Like, do you know where I could get some green? And so I hit up my friend who like brings over some pre-rolled joints. And then me and John Sally are just like ripping joints in this Chinese club. For a while when I first moved there, you could like smoke cigs in all the bars, all the clubs, like all of the restaurants. So if you're already inside a club where a lot of people are smoking cigs all around you, then like they wouldn't really notice if you're smoking weed. And a lot of Chinese people just aren't exposed to weed, so they wouldn't even like smell it and be like, oh, that's weed. They would just like, sometimes if someone's like, oh, what are you smoking? I'll be like, it's an American cigarette. And so I don't think that would work anymore. China's getting smarter. They're trying to crack down. You can't like smoke inside places anymore.
Well, if people are under 40 listening to this, when they were kids or we were kids, or 40 and over, you could smoke on airplanes still.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like I don't remember ever seeing that, but I do remember as a kid, like, putting my gum in the middle tray. There was like ashtrays on the armrest.
Yeah, I definitely remember the ashtrays.
Yeah, so people were smoking on them.
My grandma, who's 99 years old, she tells me stories of flights she used to take. They had a buffet in the back of the flight serving eggs, and you could smoke cigs in it. So my friend had a hilarious joke. He's like, yeah, they would call those flights the eggs and butts. So instead of taking the red eye, you would just, oh, yeah, I'm taking the eggs and butts home, where you can just be cranking butts and eating eggs at the breakfast buffet in the back of the flight.
Cranking butts.
My parents will, like, show my grandma a lot of the vids I do, and I'm like, you really don't need to be showing her these, because I think she's just very confused by it.
Yeah.
Especially when she was young, like, that was probably when, like, you weren't even allowed in China, and then, like, she, like, sees these videos. She's like, what the hell is my grandson doing?
He must be worried about you.
Yeah.